Here we are, the end of an era, chapter 10 of Freud's The Future of an Illusion, the conclusion, the finale. Let's get into it. Hello, welcome to Chez Eric, Psychiatry, Religion, and Life, where we talk about psychiatry and religion with a focus on how to apply it to your life. And today we will be talking about Freud's The Future of an Illusion, chapter 10. The final chapter in the series. Are you excited? Are you emotional? All right. Thank you very much for journeying with me all this way. It's a very important book. It's the major work where Freud and kind of causes this ruckus between religion and psychiatry and causes the split. And since then it's been very difficult to have them come together, right? And so it's important for this channel to go through this. So thank you very much for going through and journeying with me and going chapter by chapter and going through with a fine-tooth comb, right? And yeah, so let's do it. Let's do the last chapter. But before we do, of course, we're going to be talking about chapter 9. In chapter 9, Freud kind of wanted to emphasize his belief that a society that bases rules on reason and rationality and abandons religious doctrines would be a better society. And I kind of summarized it as saying that Freud created his own personal utopia and described his utopia and what that would look like. And in chapter 10, Freud kind of elaborates on the practicalities of this type of utopia. So let's get into it. First thing that Freud does is that he recognizes that it's pretty impractical to believe that society will get rid of all of its illusions and completely just adopt, the reasons and rationality for all secular laws, right? And he also kind of criticizes himself, saying, I very well could have my own illusion that this could be the case, my own personal wishful thinking that society will go in this direction, all right? Because it would be very, very hard for that to happen. He recognizes that people may criticize, saying, hey, Freud, if we get rid of religious doctrines, we'll need to figure out a different set of doctrines anyway, because children need to believe something, we need to teach them something, we need to teach them how to behave. And if we don't teach them how to behave, we don't teach them anything, then what are we going to do? We can't wait for them to have reason and rationality before we can teach them how not to bite people all the time or hurt people or kick people in the shins, right? We need to teach them some set of rules and laws, okay? And the only way to do it is through some sort of dogmatic process. Why don't we just keep religion as it is? It's not really doing any harm. What is the big harm? And also consider the fact that a lot of people, they may not end up having a very strong rational faculties to them. They may not have the ability to reason very well. We can't all become great philosophers. So maybe, religion is a good way to bridge the uneducated masses, right, who are just trying to, live in this world where the great philosophers can understand about ethics and life and things like that. So why don't we just keep, religion? Freud responds by saying, my illusions, he says, Freud's illusions, my illusions, are very different from religious doctrines. Because whatever he believes, he is willing to get rid of it if his experience tells him otherwise. He's willing to abandon all his beliefs for the truth. Whereas with religious doctrines, they're not willing to do that, right? And he kind of says he lives with this uncertainty always, but it doesn't mean he can't have an opinion about it. But he just recognizes the limitations of people, and therefore he is willing to recognize that if I have these limitations, that's fine. I have these beliefs. I'm going to express my beliefs, but if evidence comes by and says that my beliefs are wrong, I'm going to get rid of it and have a better idea, right? And he says that, in the future, right, we will kind of value this more. We will value intellect over all these doctrinal things, right? And that's kind of going to be the future of the world. And he also kind of criticizes, saying that what would happen if there was evidence against religious doctrines, right? We would just completely destroy and cripple the religious kind of argument, okay? And that's kind of what Freud was getting at. Freud also mentions the contention about people saying that, well, if you try to understand people through this science and everything, and I'm trying to understand the core of who people are, the psychology of people, it'll be very subjective, right? So how could we even possibly go about doing this? And he says, yeah, it's true, it's very subjective, but he makes kind of 4 points that I will admit, I tried to read them over and over again. He only makes one sentence per point about the reason why the subjectivity of human experience or the subjectivity of the human mind is going to be a big issue. And the first thing he says is like, our mental abilities were developed to explore the outer world anyway. Like our minds are meant to explore the outer world anyway, so that's not a problem. And our mental abilities are an integral part of understanding the world. And science understands our limits of our mental abilities and reveals to us, right? And science is tailored for us to understand the world in this particular way. And understanding a reality that's outside of our experience is just an abstract sort of mental game that it's really not worth thinking about. It's kind of like the Matrix, right? It does all just a simulation. What does it all mean? It means doesn't have any practical view. And so that, my dear friend, is the future of an illusion, 1 through 10. All right. What's interesting is that Freud makes the juxtaposition between religious beliefs, doctrines, and his doctrines. And he kind of emphasizes that I am willing to change my beliefs if evidence shows me otherwise. Okay, and that's kind of the scientific way of doing things. That's how science works, right? And this kind of reminds me of a debate between Bill Nye, the science guy, if you remember him, he also had a bow tie, right? And Ken Ham on evolution versus creationism, right? And they had this discussion, and it was like 1 hour discussion. I think I'll send a link at the end of this video, right? And in this discussion, they actually had very interesting sort of dual points about evolution and creationism, and this is how it went. The question for Ken Ham was, what, if anything, would change your mind, about creationism, right? And Ham answered, well, the answer to that question is, I'm a Christian. And as a Christian, I can't prove it to you, but God has definitely shown me very clearly through his word and shown himself in the person of Jesus Christ. The Bible is the word of God. I admit that's where I start from. And so as far as the word of God is concerned, no one is ever going to convince me that the word of God is not true. And in contrast, Bill Nye, the science guy, he answers a different question, but he kind of has a contrasting view this way. And this is where it kind of lights up, right? He says, if anybody makes a discovery that changes the way people view the natural world, scientists embrace him or her. This person is fantastic. Louis Pasteur, in reference to germs. No, if you find something that changes or disagrees with a common thought, that is the greatest thing going on in science, right? And isn't that the crux of the matter, right? Science is willing to, bring in new evidence, always evolving, always improving. And religion doesn't, right? Religion stays immutable. It doesn't change at all, right? We don't change religion at all. It's timeless. If we're really being honest with ourselves, that's really not the case. Religion has changed quite a bit throughout history. We have a different view of the very same doctrines, the very same, texts as we compared to 100 years ago, 2,000 years ago, right? I think it's really unfair to say that, religion is immutable. That's not changeable at all. There are certain aspects of religion, for religious beliefs, that are unchangeable, that hasn't really changed, right? For example, for Christians, it would be the resurrection of Jesus, right? But that's very similar to certain aspects of science that, aren't changeable. Force equals to mass times acceleration. Not going to change anytime soon, right? So why do religious, when we know that religious doctrines, our interpretations of them change over time, why do we hold to them that they're so unchangeable, and then we condemn other people, or we say that we're right, or we refuse to listen to the other side of things? Why do we say that religion is this sort of unchangeable thing? Why can't religion take advantage of aspects of science that we have religious doctrines and we try to interpret it the best that we can, but in the context that it shares some sort of evidence in our experience? So for example, if the religious doctrines are true, we should be able to be more kind and more loving, more patient, right? Less envious, less boastful. We should be just better human beings if we follow these doctrines. And if we don't, if this particular way of following makes us less able to understand God, less able to, again, love other people, then maybe it's worth interpreting a different way. And then all the things that kind of go through that. That I truly believe that psychiatry and religion are not at odds with each other. And that there is a common end goal here, and that is a better, more fulfilling and enriching and more life, right? That's really true to reality. So just things to think about. If you like this video, if you like the series, like and subscribe, hit the notification bell, right? And I'll see you next time. Bye. So this is the end of an era, right? Very exciting. Thank you again very much, for journeying with me all the way through 2.5 months. That's a lot of time to spend with each other. Thank you very much. I'm going to link the Bill Nye the Science Guy debate somewhere. Maybe I'll put it in the end credits or something. Not the end credits, the posts thing. But I did want to take the time to really thank you very much for everything, for all your support and watching these videos, and do share it if you think it's been very helpful for you. I will have another video on the overall picture of the future of illusion, and until then, I'll see you next time.